B2B marketers, welcome to B2 Beacon's first installment of our Leadership in Luminaries series. I'm your host, Thad Kalo, CEO of Business Online and Executive Editor of B2 Beacon. We are here in Chicago, the lovely Windy City, which happens to play host to the largest, most respected B2B marketing event in the world and association, the BMA. And I'm here with our esteemed panel of experts who represent many varying industries within the B2B marketing world. Laurent Michaud, did I pronounce Michaud? Who happens to be the head of marketing at Ingredion. We have Matt Preshern, who happens to be the CMO and Big Cheese at Windstream. And we have Ian Heller, who happens to be VP of Marketing eBiz at HD Supply Whitecap. Fair enough, gentlemen? Ready to have some fun?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about B2B marketing strategy. And I have a premise I'm going to share, and I'd love your feedback on, give me an idea of whether you believe this or not. But in our mind's eye, B2B marketers are underappreciated, underrespected, if you will. Sales are hailed as the rainmakers, engineers, geniuses behind product, right? But yet, we are the conduit, the introduction, enabler, and insights into the most valuable asset within any organization, the customer relationship. Do you agree?
Totally disagree. And I guess for a couple of reasons. One is I don't think all B2B marketers are underappreciated. I don't feel like that in my organization.
So you're appreciated, Ian?
Very much so,
okay.
I think it's really the result of the team that I have. But I think the other thing is that I hear a lot of marketers who want to demand respect, but the salespeople are the ones who typically get fired when you don't make the numbers. And so if the marketers want to own the relationship and they want the respect, then they need to make sure they're setting firm sales goals for their initiatives, and they're accountable for hitting them, and they suffer the consequences if they don't. So I know a lot of people who are in marketing because they wanted to get out of the spotlight from sales. I'm sure a lot of people at this conference do not fit that profile, but the salespeople have a clear scorecard. They have to hit it every month, every quarter, every year. If the marketers want to own the relationship, if they want to be accountable, or they want to get the credit for the success, they need to sign up for the numbers and be accountable when they don't make it.
I love it. And I think there's a term called the revenue marketer that we'll actually address down the road, but that's well done. Matt or Lawrence?
Yeah, I'm going to come out somewhere there in the middle. I agree and disagree, and so my personal view, I would, and I've said this now for a couple of years, I don't think there's ever been a more exciting time to be in marketing than right now. And why is that? I think the fundamentals of marketing, all the notions around creative and brand, they'll continue to be super important. But we're introducing analytics, real analytics, not just big data, real analytics into the spectrum. We're talking about the customer experience, and I would assert that marketing plays a key leadership role, but doesn't necessarily own the customer experience. But we can lead this on behalf of our organizations. And then, the part that's, I think, really different, things are moving at an unbelievable rate and pace. And as a marketeer, more often than not, at least at Windstream where I work, in parallel with our sales guys, you have two choices. You can either embrace it, or you can try to not embrace it. And I think when you do the latter, that's where you won't win. But in my organization, or I think also why I've been asked to join Windstream as the enterprise CMO, I do not feel that marketing is underappreciated at all. In fact, I would suggest that we have a product marketing function, we have a pricing function, we have a customer experience / net promoter system that we've put in place. We're doing everything around analytics, and the company is looking to us to partner with sales, and they're holding us, just as you said, directly accountable for top-line revenue growth. So to me, it's a great time to be where we are.
And I love it. And you mentioned a number of things I think we'll dig into, specifically the alignment around sales and marketing, what successful organizations are doing to bring that together. But Laurent, where do you fall on that continuum?
I think the marketers are misunderstood. And the danger we have as a profession is to try to justify yourself. If you try to justify yourself, then, it's not going to work. So why are we misunderstood? I think we're misunderstood because we think concepts. We think in a conceptual state. And most of the leaders in the business, they think in very pragmatic and tangible things. So very often our leaders appreciate the work of marketing when it's delivered. But when we sell it to them, they don't understand what we mean, so they don't really support it. So I think our goal is to really try to speak the language of the business leaders with very tangible, practical way of demonstrating the value we can bring, rather than stay in the conceptual world that we lack so much sometimes. So this is the first thing. The second thing regarding the relationship with sales, in our organization, it's not only with sales, but we need to have parity and engagement with sales and technical. And when marketing works well in our organization is when sales, technical, and marketing are at the same level, speak the same language, and our partner in business.
Okay, this is great fodder to begin us. Matt, it seems like you got
actually
something to add
build
to
on that?
Absolutely.
Because I think what you just said is at the core of this. So if I just may go through a few things, marketing being aligned to the business. So if you believe in the concept of brand and culture ought to be authentically one, which I happen to do, then marketing and HR at a minimum actually need to work really closely together. If you believe in sales and marketing automation, we're integrating Salesforce.com and Marketo. By the way, the only way that works is if you work with IT and with sales and marketing. If you believe in top-line revenue growth, by the way, the only way that works is if sales and marketing have common goals and actually work together. If you happen to own a pricing function, you have to be successful, you have to learn the language of your CFO and your finance community, right? And I can go on. If you want to truly introduce products, more often than not in organizations, the product side is very technical. And so to me, the fascinating part, and again, maybe the thing why we're being pushed as a function is you have to make a decision whether you're going to embrace that. And if you do, and you build those bridges with your peers, I think you can be highly successful.
So let's dig into that. Let's dig in, because I think, and let's get into the notion of practicality. I love this. This is great fodder for an amazing conversation. But let's get very specific. One of the things we hear often, and what I'm hearing as a common chord throughout this conversation, is alignment, right? We can talk about holistic alignment to the marketing and the multiple functions within the organization. But more specifically, where I think a lot of folks are saying, where is the alignment between sales and marketing? And the question I have for you, and I'd love to start with you, Ian, is what are the actual conversations you're having with sales? What are you asking of them? What are they asking of you to bring that together to actually make that work?
Well, I think it gets to the reality that what marketing does is extremely diverse. I mean, we all know it's diverse in terms of it can be anything from data analytics to email to Salesforce automation, you name it. But it's also diverse in the way that you interact with customers. So for example, with our sales force, we do things to generate leads for them, to provide sales collateral for them, et cetera. But when it comes to the small customers, we really do own those relationships because they're too small to devote a personal selling individual to.
Sure.
So our relationship and our conversation with the sales department is, on the one hand, what can we do to help you in your relationships with customers?
So that's the actual question you ask. You ask that very specific question to the sales.
Yeah, and it's not just a question. You have to be out there and ride with those individuals and visit customers with them because it's kind of like in market research. You can't ask people for solutions. You have to understand their needs.
Sure.
And you have to do that with account managers, with salespeople, by going and making sales calls with them. But then our job is to grow so many small customers up that we hand them off to the salespeople, and then that they understand what to do with them when they get them as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
In terms of sales alignments, very, very practically what we do in some region of the world, and we try to push the model everywhere, is in December, you have the head of marketing, the head of sales, and the head of technology sit down in a room for a day. And they don't leave the day until they have agreed the objective for the year for their teams in common. So, we are going to promote this product in this application on this market. Sales is going to do this, marketing is to do that, technical is going to support it. And this is part of our personal objectives for the year. This is a very tangible way of aligning and engaging, at the beginning of the year so that everybody is aligned. And no, we don't do that everywhere in the world, but
Sure.
where we do it, it's really show maturity of the alignment.
I love it. And so you have that practical conversation. Everyone's locked in a room. You're having some scotch, maybe smoking a cigar, whatever it may be. How do you communicate to the rest of the organization so they actually can execute against that vision and those goals?
Well, when the goals are set up, they are set up for the leaders, but then it cascades down. So we have a system of cascading down the objective and the goals to the whole of organization. So it's we have a tool to do that, and we have, objective for the years, and then, the leadership is saying, okay, we're going to do that, and then everybody in their own objective for the year know exactly what they're going to do.
I mean, if I could add to that, I kind of jokingly, but not truly jokingly, I say my best buddy in the company is my counterpart, our EVP of sales. We both report directly to the CEO, and we probably speak, if not every day. I spent 45 minutes this morning talking to John, and I can give you some of the examples of the things that we talk. I fully agree, you have to have the alignment on the objectives and the key priorities, but where we've been trying very hard, I've been trying to move away from marketing sometimes is perceived as pushing information to sales, and I'm trying to move to a model where we're engaging. Let's have a discussion about, okay, you need more leads. We can give you analytics and leads, but then sometimes people don't know how to follow up and how to do it in Salesforce.com. Okay. We know, for example, that our channel partners who are cloud interested may not be cloud enabled. Maybe we need to have a work session with sales, with the partner, and do it together. We know that in certain parts in our market, the awareness of the Windstream brand is not what it needs to be. I need to have that feedback. I've even coined we've coined the frame, the following, I think, very important kind of inside-out point of view. And I don't know if you guys would agree with this. There's always a discussion about sales enablement, and that's kind of the industry term. I actually think what's equally, if not more important, is marketing enablement. In other words, I'm in Chicago next week again, and I'm going to tell them, look, if you don't tell me what it is that's really keeping you up at night, we can't make you successful. And so you have to develop, I think, a common platform for dialogue. And then, as with most things in life, you have to have a certain level of trust, and you have to constantly nurture it and speak to each other.
So let me ask this question then. So if the common thread here is alignment, communication, and then execution, we obviously have to execute against those plans. One of the things we see of marketers and organizations that actually do it well is nimbleness, because this world changes so fast. And those companies that can take advantage of change are typically going to win. And there's no business or industry right now that is immune to that. How do large organizations like the ones you run and departments you manage stay nimble in a very structured, large environment, if you will?
I think you have to be process enabled. I mean, you have to have processes that span into all the other departments that these gentlemen named earlier, including finance, sales, HR, et cetera. I think the reality is that when you're talking about penetrating a large account, it's going to take every quiver in your arrow. You're going to have a national account manager. You might have a local outside account manager. You may have a telesales person working end users. You may be doing direct mail, email, social media. It's an orchestrated strategy to go after these customers. That doesn't happen without great communication. I agree with that. But you also have to have processes built that you engage on a reliable basis. I mean, they're documented. The participants know what their role is in the process. You measure the process effectiveness. And when you need to improve the process, you do so, everybody knows it.
But here's my question on that, and forgive me, but isn't that the very definition of not being nimble? Because you're not able to invent as things need to happen on the fly?
If I may, I think, look, I think, and I'm not the process expert, but I can tell you, having worked for my prior employer, IBM, which had a lot of process. I have now come to a company, Windstream, that probably has a little bit too little. And what you realize is if you don't have certain processes, you can't automate. And
so there's no scale in that.
Yes, because you can't rely on people being heroes every day. But my response to your question would have been as follows. And we practice this now. I think there's never been a more important time to literally to pilot things. You pilot them, you succeed fast, you fail fast. And when it's not working, you move away. You don't have 6 months. Your budget, you may have an annualized budget, but by the way, it's not fixed. You manage it on a quarterly basis, and when something really works, you supercharge it. When something doesn't work, you try to fix it. If you can't, you have to walk away. And you have to have actually enough wherewithal, and you have to kind of leave your ego at the door sometimes and say, look, this is not working. And we just don't have the funds, so you pilot. You constantly pilot, you try, and you keep on doing that. And as you do that, you actually create also, you have to create, I think, a cultural aspect where people feel comfortable to try new things and don't feel that they're going to be penalized if something doesn't work.
I love it.
To complement that and maybe give a slightly different angle, we're a global company, so we have a layer of marketing at global level, another layer at regional level, and another level at country level. And you know, the country level has a lot of flexibility and nimbleness.
Yep.
Okay, the region is more coordinating the different countries of the regions, and global is more process. You know, what best
Right.
practice, what the process are. So sometimes, you know, at global level we are not very nimble, but in the region or at country level they are very nimble.
So I love it. And you talked about failure, and we were talking about nimbleness. If you would, very practical example of your greatest learning failure. What did you do? How did it fail? And what did you learn from it? Because I think, to Matt's point, it's one of the greatest opportunities for marketers today is to move fast but not perfect, take those learnings and continue to get better and better and better, optimize over time. So I'm just wondering if you're willing to share this,
Yeah.
what did you guys completely screw up and what did you learn from it?
I mean, I'm happy to start and you know, to take slight exception even on the, I think you have to be careful to not even call it a screw up. Like if you believe in the notion of succeeding fast and then failing, you know what, you're trying something. Example that we've just done, I can't give you all the details, but we've taken analytics very, very seriously. And we just analyzed over 1 million transactional records that we then cross-referenced with a pricing database and so forth. And we ended up with more than 50,000 highly analytically, great leads. And we said, okay, we're going to put a certain amount of them. We didn't give them all 50,000. We did 2 pilots. Gave a small amount of them to our account managers, and then we gave another smaller ones to our direct sales. So here's what happened. The account managers were loving it. They're like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. We didn't know this, all of this. What we learned on the direct side is that when we did the analytics, the actual target customer segment ended up, these opportunities were much smaller. We didn't have the right contact person. So now, in the spirit of failing or succeeding, I can prove an ROI on the account side today, but the way I'm looking at it is, okay, these 1,000 leads that we just created that are doing nothing, I just learned that our contact database, certain other data pools are not where they need to be, and now what we're doing is we're actually using that insight very quickly for phase 2 of this pilot to actually, make a difference. And so this is one of many things, but it's again, and trust me, the guys who were working on this for 3 months, really, really smart people, they were disappointed. Some of them were like, I can't believe that this is not working. Are they doing something wrong? And eventually said, look, it just didn't work, but let's not do that. You made a mistake or you did it wrong and sales didn't do that. No, we're learning, we're getting better.
What I heard from that, and I love, is actually how you're framing it. You're framing it to learn. You're not framing
Correct.
it to deliver. I mean, we all have tangible outcomes we're looking for, but we're looking to better understand what's going to drive outcomes, and we're putting 2 pilots out there, and we're testing.
If you throw 10 things at the wall and 5 stick, and 3 are kind of so and 2 fail, you're still better off than if you do 3 and you do nothing else, and out of the 3, only 1 succeeds.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say that a recent failure that we had was the way that we...
Learning. How about learning?
It was a failure in a way, but in a good way. But, you have to have a culture that lets you fail, right?
Sure.
And lets you
Touche.
come back and
I
learn
fully
from
agree.
it. Because if your boss
Yes.
doesn't support that, then you don't get the second chance.
Yep.
But when we implemented e-commerce with construction contractors, we did it the way everybody else does, which is that they place the order on a computer, it goes into the ERP and ships from a warehouse. Well, the problem is that our customers, first of all, are brand new to B2B web, because until the advent of mobile web, construction contractors didn't have access to the internet. So this is their first experience with it. And the reality is, most of our business flows through our account managers, and we failed to put the account managers in the middle of the transaction. What we learned is those transactions have to go to the account manager for review and approval and advice and consultation before it goes into the ERP. And the customers want that, and the account managers want that. And so we came out of the gates with this hot new system, and it did not give us the results that we wanted. And we had to go back to the drawing board and engage the salespeople, my counterpart in sales, and say, why are your guys and our customers not using it? And the answer was simple: you left us out of the process. And we've learned that lesson, and we're fixing it.
That's a great insight. Fantastic. Lawrence?
An example that comes to mind is a mobile app that we developed. And I think we developed it a bit too much, inside out. And so we developed it with partner, we launched it. It was so not really successful. So we basically decided to stop using it. But then we took the engine of this app, and then we are redesigning totally differently for something to engage customers very differently, very uniquely. So I think we learn from the mistake. So we had a go at it, didn't work, we are redesigning it, and now we're going to engage with customer to make sure that the app is really for the customer and not inside out.
I love it.
Very simple. We should have thought about that, but we are very excited. It was probably one of our first mobile apps that we developed, and we got carried away a bit, I think.
It always looks obvious after the fact, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do
Absolutely.
we miss that?
Hindsight's so easy. So buyers buy differently than they have, 12, 24 months ago. What are the most salient insights you've found in terms of the way that shift in the buying behavior that's happened from a marketing perspective? What have you seen?
I mean, I would answer this the following way. I think, and look, whether it's Forrester or Sirius or Gartner, everybody talks about the empowered customer, right? But I think what that really speaks to is that, and whatever the statistics are, some people say 2/3 of the people before they ever see a salesperson have done some type of research. I don't know if that's true or not. But what I do know, because I also meet with channel partners and with customers all the time, they are much more knowledgeable about our brand, our products, and who we are as a company than they've ever been before. Ever been before. And so if you accept that, you can look at it different ways. One of it is you then have to really think about customer experience at every touch point. You also have to get away from a notion that your salesperson per se can handle everything at every time, because I would suggest to you that sometimes that poor sales guy or gal is getting into a situation where the customer knows more about the company than they themselves do, right? And so
That's an interesting, successful conundrum.
I actually
right?
really believe that. But if you buy into that premise, and you go back to what we talked about earlier, that's where and why the sales and marketing alignment and being on the same page is so important. Because it's your customers will interact with you whether you like it or not. They'll go on Google, they'll go on Bing, they'll search, they'll find out info, they'll go into their social networks. If they don't like you, they'll tweet about you, they'll do all these types of things.
If they love you,
right?
they'll tell the world. If they don't love you,
Touché.
they'll tell the world, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And so again, is it scary at times? Sure. Is it an opportunity? Right on.
I love it.
But not only they know more about our product and offering, but information today travels very, very fast,
Yes.
right? So sometimes we launch a product in one region because of the regulatory situation. We can launch it only in the US, say. But multinational companies, they will know about it everywhere in the world. So putting us, in slightly awkward positions from time to time. So this is also a new dimension that we need to manage
Right.
very carefully. Is that it's very difficult to launch a product only in one country or in one part of the world, because everybody will know about it. And so then what's your positioning? How do you engage with the rest of the world? How do you explain to them, well, it's not approved yet in your country,
Right.
all of that. So it's adding some complexity as well.
Yeah, and I guess what I take away from that is there's more transparency than ever.
Right.
Yep.
Sounds funny, but you can't fake authenticity. So, the days of trying to act like you add value that's better than your competitors when you really don't are long gone. So your promotions are transparent, your service is transparent, everything about your company, your brand is transparent. So the focus really is on having a better value proposition and making sure that your brand resonates with the customers.
And you deliver on that brand proposition.
See, that's why, to build on that, that's why I personally would say that, and again, not every company may agree, but I personally feel very strongly, brand and culture. Because if your brand is not authentic, your customers, never make the mistake to think that your customers are not smart. They're as smart, if not smarter, than you are in your company. And
I
you
hate it when
just,
that happens.
It happens. The problem is it happens every day, right?
And they'll punish you if they're not aligned.
And if you believe that you can position your brand in a certain way, but your company does not behave that way and it doesn't act that way.
But this is not new. Okay, so what I don't like is when people say, oh, today is more difficult than yesterday. I disagree totally with that. I think, what you just say on the value of the brand, it was true 20 years ago. It was true 10 years ago. It will be true in 10 years again, right? So there's also some fundamentals which are not changing. Of course, the environment is changing. But I don't really believe that competition is more difficult than before. You have the competition with your time. With the tools of your time, you need to adapt to that. And I always push back when people say, oh, today it's more difficult, it's faster, it's just different, right? But some fundamentals stay, like the value of the brand, the value of your engagement, and things like that do not change.
I was not trying to imply that, by the way.
I'm
not trying to make
even the notion of measuring the value of the brand, I think, has changed because in our mind's eye, your brand can mean something different for different customers, and even though they're buying the same exact product in the same exact location, they're the same exact size. So I think that's a dynamic that we have to manage. But let's move on to something else, which is kind of a hot title or job title, if you will. This notion of revenue marketer. Have you heard of it? Do you have one? Is this something that you're thinking about? Is this part of the roadmap?
Revenue marketer. I'm not really sure. I think I intellectually understand what it is. But
Why don't you define it?
It's no.
Well,
can I just
go for it. Yeah.
It's okay. No, it's okay. I'm just saying. Look, if at least the way I look at marketing, I don't feel that the marketing function at Windstream owns the marketing metrics of the company. We don't. We are just as responsible for revenue growth, OIBDA, NPS scores, as the other leaders in the company. If that implies that you as a function are putting more focus on revenue management, and it implies that you're also getting personally involved in pipeline management, and you're working through the whole funnel, I'm all for it. Whether or not you need a separate title and a function, I'm not convinced, because I actually believe that the whole marketing function needs to co-own that top-line revenue growth.
Well, and it's very much the point you made when we started, Ian, which is, do you want to be in the direct line of sight of being responsible for helping to hit numbers at the top line? And we just sat here with Jeff a moment ago, and he talked about, the smartest and the best and those that are going to be most successful not only are going to look to be in the direct side of top line, but also bottom line. They want to produce margin as well, so they're measuring all the way through. Right. And that's where I think this new term of revenue marketer is coming into play, or somewhat vogue. I don't know if Lawrence or yourself, Ian, agree with that. We
have two terms we use. We use business marketing. So rather than just saying marketing, sometimes we say business marketing to really, show to everybody that we care about business very much. And business development for me in B2B is part of marketing. So business development, I don't think we need another term, to be frank. And I fully agree with you. At the end of the day, we have some metrics. We share the metrics with the rest of the organization. It's all about developing the business, growing the business profitably.
But do you feel in your role in the organization that you represent within your company that you're responsible for revenue and margin within marketing?
Yeah, we have absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only reason why I would say sorry, this reminds me of when everybody said you need to have a digital marketing leader. And then suddenly you had a digital marketing plan and you had the other marketing plan, and you were looking at each other and you said, okay, and by the way, the digital marketing budget is separate from the marketing budget. And I think we've overcome that. And the only thing I'm nervous about is that we're going to have
Absolutely.
a revenue manager, and then we're going to have the rest of marketing and the, right? So,
Yep.
so not diminishing the importance, right? It is, but everybody has to own it.
Absolutely.
So David Packard, who was the co-founder of Hewlett Packard, said that marketing is too important to be left to the marketing department. and I love, that's my favorite quote, because people, I think, view it as an insult on marketing, but I actually think what he means is that marketing is bigger, and your marketing effectiveness is way more than just what the marketing department does. And so I think our job is to set goals for marketing performance and enroll the rest of the company in the importance and benefit of hitting those goals. But you have to have the relationships like you described in order to get people to buy into that. And similarly, just like the sales department has a responsibility for hitting revenue numbers and profit numbers, we share in that responsibility. I mean, you really have to have those kinds of cross-departmental, company-wide metrics and relationships to pull that off.
Holistic and alignment. Lawrence?
Yeah, our business development director, for example, every quarter they report on their business in terms of volume, sales, profit, activity, and all of that, right?
Yep.
So they don't have accounts responsibility directly, but they report on the business development of their activity, which is an activity where we put some bets on. So we said, okay, based on this trend, we put some resource on a specific area, and you manage that.
Yep.
And they are part of marketing. You could say that they're also part of sales because they go on the ground, they visit accounts, but they are not accountable for the customer,
Yep.
but they're accountable for the business unit's results, if you will.
Well, and if we had the time, I would go through, peeling back the layer one further to say what are the key performance indicators, the metrics that actually support those higher level business metrics, if you will. But we're just about out of time, so let's do this. I'd love to, in the 30-second time frame, get an understanding of, if you were to give advice to senior B2B digital marketers, what do they need to be thinking about? What do they need to be doing over the next 12 to 24 months that they're probably not? Ian?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, the industry's changing faster than ever, so you have to stay on top of things that are happening, and going to conferences like this is very important. But I mean, I think fundamentally B2B is really more about data, process, and measurement than it is the old standards, the things that you learn in college about creativity. I mean, those things.
Advertising.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, that's the icing on the cake, not the cake.
Yep.
And I find that a lot of times people who come out of more technical or quantitative disciplines like finance or engineering seem to have an easier time succeeding in marketing than people with marketing degrees.
I love that. That's interesting. And we have a whole session around customer insights through the lens of data, so that's an excellent point. Matt?
Building on that, and I agree with this, a couple of things. And we didn't talk as much about customer experience. I believe that truly understanding your customer and the touch points that they have is going to be even more important than ever before. The second thing, just building on what I said earlier, we don't have the time to go through 3 or 6 month cycles to build a campaign or to wait for measurements that may or may not come. You have to try things, you have to pilot them, and you have to actually learn and fail very fast. And lastly, building upon what my colleague said, but maybe from a slightly different angle, I think the science part of marketing is exceptionally important. We're starting to have better tools, better vehicles to do analytics. But I still also believe that for all of those who are out there who are creative and who actually really believe in content and in insights and value propositions, the fundamentals, they're still there. You're still gonna need them. They're actually the part that still makes marketing fun as well. So don't lose that.
How dare we have fun?
Yeah, no, the nuance being just don't, hopefully 5 years from now, we're not looking at ourselves and saying, all the creative guys moved on and we're a bunch of data analysts who just,
This would be sad.
Right. It's that marriage, though, the insights with what to do about those insights,
right,
which blossoms
yes.
into
To
the
build on
modern-day
the-
marketer, right?
You build
Yeah.
them out of the data.
That's right.
Absolutely. Lawrence?
Maybe a key word for me is engagement, and we discussed that
Right.
today. But engage with customers, as you say. Engage with your partners, sales and technical, and work with them as business partner. And then go beyond that and engage IT. I mean, last year I invited 2 colleagues from IT to the BMA, and I think it blew their mind. And for the brand, we engage with HR, as you mentioned earlier. So we have workshops with HR all the time. So, engaging with your partners in crime, I think is something very, very important to do as marketer in today's business. The second thing is when you when you engage with your leadership, make it very pragmatic and tangible, because they sometimes struggle with conceptual. So it's a key learning for me, and we try now to do much more conceptual things, less conceptual thing and more tangible things,
Right.
so that we can show how it will look like if we get the money, and then it's much easier to get the money.
It's fantastic. Ian, Matt, Lauren, this has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.